Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. I'm here to give you 6 pro tips to make the ultimate matcha latte and avoid those murky, muddy, overly sweetened abominations that you see being carried around everywhere on the streets these days. My tea house in London has been serving matcha lattes for nearly 20 years. Way before the Gen Z buzz around matcha, when people were walking into my tea house going, what is that weird green drink that you're serving? So we have been perfecting this technique for nearly 2 decades. I'm glad that the world has finally caught up and everyone has gotten a taste for this amazing drink. And you cannot walk anywhere these days in London without passing a coffee shop or a bar proudly proclaiming that they're serving matcha lattes. But with this rise in popularity, there is a dirge of awful matcha lattes being served out there. So I'm here to give you the secrets, give you the 6 pro tips to make the ultimate matcha latte for yourself and spot the telltale signs that an establishment may not be serving the best drinks possible. So let's dive straight in with tip number 1, which is of course, get good quality matcha. But what does that actually mean? I read an article recently and a journalist was proudly proclaiming that you don't need to buy ceremonial grade matcha for your matcha lattes. You can save money, buy culinary grade matcha, and it will be just as good. You won't tell the difference. I was face palming when I read this because that simply isn't true. Let's get something straight. There is no official definition of ceremonial grade. So anybody can call their matcha ceremonial grade. And with the rise in popularity of matcha, believe me, everybody is calling their matcha ceremonial grade matcha. So if you see culinary grade written on the package, it is going to be low quality, and you will taste the difference unless you've got something seriously wrong with your taste buds. I have done an entire video in Japan explaining what makes high quality matcha and what we look for when we are sourcing our matcha. So you can go and check out that video and immerse yourself in the details in how they make top quality matcha. But I'll quickly give you the lowdown. Matcha is ground micronized green tea. It should be made from high quality tencha, which is essentially green tea which has been specifically grown for making matcha. That means it should be shade grown. It needs to go through an extensive process to make the top grade green tea. That green tea then should be cured, so it should be stored for a while. You should not be seeing matcha hitting the market before sort of June or July. Anything before that has not been produced properly. And then it is blended by masters that formulate the right blend of different plots of land tencha that they then grind using stone mills at a low temperature to maintain the green color and maintain all the nutrients in the tea. And it should be stone ground and micronized to below around 10 microns. So it's super fine to make a suspension. Now, that's the general definition that I would give to saying that this is ceremonial grade matcha. But as I said, there are no controls. And so if you see culinary grade, believe me, that is going to be super low quality. What does that mean? It's going to be made from tencha or green tea that is not particularly high quality, not grown in really good areas, potentially grown more close to industrial areas. Therefore, there's more of a potential for heavy metal contamination in the tea. Don't forget that you are actually ingesting this tea. When you are brewing other teas, you're actually brewing the tea, you're getting an extraction, and then you're throwing the leaves away. But with matcha, you're actually eating the leaves. So it's very important that you get top quality matcha so that you feel confident that what you're ingesting is not going to be potentially harmful for you over the long period. I'm not trying to create any scare stories here, but like if you're drinking matcha lattes every day, you want to make sure you're getting the top grade stuff. So you don't want green tea which is grown near overly industrialized areas that has been sprayed too much with pesticides, where the producers are just thinking, I need to increase yield, I need to have as much tea as possible because we're selling this as culinary grade, low grade matcha. Secondly, the texture of it is not going to be as good generally because they're not going to be grinding it to that real level of micronization where it's very, very fine, under 10 microns. They may even be using machine grinding, which usually increases the temperature, so you're not going to get as many nutrients. It's not going to be as green in terms of the color, although be warned, a lot of these culinary grade matchas or low quality matchas will add some chlorophyll into their matcha to increase the color of the matcha. So if you see a matcha which is bright green, it doesn't necessarily mean it's top grade matcha either. So it may be ground using machines, or it might just be not ground that well, and you'll notice a sort of gritty texture in the matcha. And lastly, taste. You will taste the difference. That journalist saying you don't taste the difference, well, I don't know what that person's taste buds are like, but you will taste the difference. So get yourself good quality matcha. How do you find good quality matcha? How can you assess what is good quality matcha? Well, I've done entire videos about this. I'll stick a link in the description below. And just as another point, I've done a pro tips on how to make pure matcha tea. You can go check out that video as well if you want to make pure matcha tea. We're going to be focusing today on matcha lattes. But how do you find the best matcha? Well, I think that, looking for ceremonial grade matcha is a good starting point. But really, the telltale sign that I would suggest, the shortcut hack is, are they including the cultivar? The variety on the labeling. If it just says matcha, ceremonial matcha, okay, not great. If it says ceremonial matcha from Uji, Kyoto, which is like the sort of mother area of where matcha tradition comes from, yeah, fine, but everyone's doing that these days. It should say the cultivar. So you can see here on our Mayleaf matcha, you can see we've got a Yabukita here and we've got an Okumidori. As long as it says the cultivar, it demonstrates that the seller understands that the cultivar is an important factor. And that moves me on to tip number 2, which is if you are going to enjoy matcha lattes, you should be trying lots of different matchas, because matcha is not just one drink. Think of it like coffee. You get lots of different types of coffee, right? That will all have different subtleties in their flavor. So you get matcha which is more savory and umami. You get matcha which is fruitier. You get matcha which is more floral. And this all is defined by terroir. It's defined by, where it is produced, how it is produced. The cultivar or variety is a huge factor in the taste of the tea. So you may prefer a matcha which has a little bit more bitterness to counteract the milk. You may find that you want a matcha which is softer, more rounded. You may want a matcha which is more floral, more fruity. So finding good matcha is not a one-step process. This is about exploring the varieties of taste so you can find your favorites, but also you can give yourself options whenever you want to make yourself a matcha latte. So think of matcha exactly like coffee. You may have your favorite coffee blend, but you might want some variety in your cupboard. Or think of it like wine. Calling matcha just matcha is like saying French red wine, right? There are many different styles. There are many different subtleties of taste, and you will note the difference. So find yourself good matcha, but also experiment with different styles. At Mayleaf, we tend to source 2 different matchas in the year. One we call ceremonial grade and one we call master's matcha. You can learn more about that if you go to the website. I'm not going to get into it, but these are 2 matchas from 2 different cultivars, Yabukita and Okumidori, and they're from 2 different producers, and so they have different flavor profiles. Right. Tip number 3, whisk your matcha to order. Now, if you're making your matcha latte, matcha flat white, matchachino, whichever variation you want to make, if you're making that at home, you will be, or you should be, whisking it at the time that you are making your drink. Don't worry, I'm going to show you the whole process very soon so you'll understand what that means if you're a bit confused. However, a lot of coffee shops, restaurants, even high-end restaurants use the squeezy bottle. Now, I have a big problem with the squeezy bottle. Okay, so what they're doing is they're pre-making matcha with water so that they can then just pour it, squirt into a cup, similar to like an espresso amount, and then pour the hot or cold milk, in the case of an iced matcha, over the top, and there you go, ready to go. Serve. Very quick, very easy. You can turn around matcha very, very fast. But matcha is a very, very sensitive drink. The moment that it hits water, it is starting to oxidize. It is going to be changing. Now, if I do this and leave it for 20 minutes, you're probably not going to notice a difference. I made this matcha 4 hours ago and I kept it in the fridge. And note that I filled this squeezy bottle to the top, so there's no oxygen in here to oxidize with the matcha. So I'm giving this the best chance possible, right? It's not too long. It's been stored in the fridge and with not much air to oxidize. And I'm going to do a taste test so that we can taste the difference between this and a freshly whisked matcha that I'm going to do. And we're going to see if there's a difference. I already know there will be because I've done this test before. It amazes me how many places use the squeezy bottle method. Now, I understand, of course, it makes sense, right? You want to turn around drinks very quickly, that's fine. But I have been to high-end restaurants where they have recommended to their staff that even if there's like this much matcha left, that they can store it overnight and serve it the next day. I mean, it just shows such a lack of respect for this amazing drink. It drives me crazy. And a lot of places that write Whisk to order, just take a look. Take a look. I've gone to so many places and they say whisked to order, and you look and yep, sure enough, the fridge opens and out comes a squeezy bottle. I would turn around and walk out because you're not going to get a top grade matcha latte. All right, let's do this. So I'm just going to literally squirt some of this in here. Yeah. And I'm going to make myself, I'll use the ceremonial grade. I'm just going to make myself a small quantity with cold water of matcha. I'll put it on the scale. Yeah, I'm just going to do with that amount of tea. I can eyeball these things these days. So with that amount of tea, I'm just going to put 1 gram in. So this is 1 gram of our ceremonial yabukita. There you go. And we're just going to dilute it with some cold water and just whisk it, just so that we can taste the difference. It's not going to be exactly proportionally the same, but it's about tasting the level of oxidation. So that's about the same amount of water. And we give it a whisk. So I'm just going to whisk this, and I'm just going to do it very quickly. I'm not going to, go whole tea ceremony style and, do everything perfectly. And for all of those people that are now wincing at the screen because they're hearing the whisk touch the base and they've been trained in, the whole, art of matcha making. Okay, I get you. There's a whole art in matcha making, but this video is all about trying to keep things simple for everybody to use out there. You don't have to learn all of the ceremony to make a great matcha latte. So I'm going to put a little bit more matcha in here just to even it out. And I'm going to, just because I want to be fair, I'm going to give this a whisk as well, just because the frothiness does make a difference in terms of the taste. Okay. Now I hope that this camera is going to pick this up. The difference in color is immense, immense. This is vibrant, bright, it's shining emerald green. This is just murky gray green. This was only a few hours in the fridge. in a full bottle of matcha mix. All right, I'll taste this one. Umami moves to hazelnuts, moves to like a limoncello, lemony sweetness, and then hits you with that little bitterness at the back of your mouth, just where the tongue hits the back of your throat, and that dissipates into like a slightly like arugula rocket, lemony, sweet candy floss note. It's gorgeous. Same exact tea, same exact matcha, totally different color. Flat, old tasting, lost all its verve and vibrancy. Slightly sort of flowery, but flowery in not in a fresh flower, like in a dried flowers, like dried cherry blossoms, which is all right, but it really is a noticeable difference to the boldness, the brightness, and the vivacity of this one here. Same exact matcha, 3 hours difference. So if you walk into a coffee shop and you see this, do not order a matcha latte. I would, it's the equivalent of a barista pulling espresso shots, right? Just pre-pulling a load of espresso shots in a bottle. You would never see that, right? So you should expect exactly the same with your matcha. They should be whisking to order fresh. Enough said. So let's move on to tip number 4, a very quick one, and that is don't use boiling water, right? You've probably heard this before, but if you pour boiling water over your matcha, it's going to extract excessive amounts of catechins into your liquor, which is going to make your matcha latte too bitter. Now, everything is a matter of taste, and when you're combining with milk, you want more bitterness, so it offsets it. That's the joy. It's that bitter to creamy note. So I say that as an initial advice. If you prefer more bitterness, then increase the temperature. We generally use 80-degree water for making all of our matchas. Right, we're going to clear this down and we're going to move on to tip number 5, which is the most important. Get your process right. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to show you exactly how we make our matcha lattes at the Mayleaf Tea House in London. All of the secrets right here. Now, you can make a matcha flat white or a matchino. It's just going to be changing the amount of milk. But we're going to be making a latte here because that's the most popular one out there. So first of all, what I'm doing is I'm measuring amount of milk. Now, I'm using a scale. You don't have to. You could use just a calibrated jug. We're going to put 200 ml of milk in here, which is about 200 grams, there or thereabouts. And now you can heat that in a pan. If you've got a milk frother, great, you can do that. I've got one of these nifty little frother heater units here. Obviously, at the tea house, we've got a proper, steam wand. So I'm gonna now use this and heat it up. It's a bit noisy, so I'll be back with you once this milk is warm. Okay, so the milk has been heated and frothed. Now, I'm gonna put this bowl over the scale, and I'm going to put 5 grams of matcha. We do not mess around at Mayleaf. All right, now a lot of places will put 1 gram, 2 grams. 2 grams is standard. We like to go big on our matcha. We want that flavor, we want that hit. So we go 5 grams. I'm giving you our recipe. You can tailor it. If it's too strong for you, you can bring it down, but we love the taste and we want it to shine out. So we do not mess around with the amount of matcha we put in our matcha lattes. So there is 5 grams. You can see visually how much matcha that is. Every single matcha latte or flat white gets 5 grams. I have 80-degree water here, and I'm going to reset the scale, and I'm putting 80 milliliters or 80 grams of water. So go slow. Now, some people would say, oh, put a little bit in and then make a paste. But we found in all our experiments that that's not necessary. You can do it this way. So there's 80 mil of water. Take your time a little bit. Make sure you collect all of the matcha from the edges, because there will be some powder that sticks. And make sure that you now be thorough about getting all of the matcha to be suspended, and take some time to whisk. Whisking is very important with matcha. As my voice vibrates, it's very important with matcha. It really helps to make a more luxurious drink. I'm not the best whisker. You do it in like a W motion, and you should really not let the whisk touch the base too much after you've incorporated it. Now, a lot of people would say you should sieve your matcha beforehand. There's going to be lots of comments, I predict, about no, you need to do that. You can taste the difference if you don't sieve it. Honestly, we've tested this over nearly 20 years. We've tried every single variation. I don't notice a difference. Heresy, I know, but I don't notice a difference if you sieve it or not. Maybe if you're making a koi cha, it'll make a difference. Right. So now I've got my matcha, I've got my milk. All I'm doing is combining them. Right. Now, we at Mayleaf serve it in the bowl because I love holding a bowl. So we would now just be putting the milk in, putting the froth on top. We don't do any latte art because I think that's for coffee. Instead, we just give it a swirl. Just a little swirl here, just to make it pretty. And there you go. Matcha latte. Super simple. Just get the right ingredients and the right proportions. Let's give it a try. It's just that perfect blend of umami, nutty, hazelnuts, almonds, moving to that light freshness, not grassy. You do not want grassy matcha. It means it's badly produced. But like brothy and vegetal, moving to light bitterness, which is then offset with that cream of the milk. Yeah, I just spilt all over myself. One second. All right, I'm back. Cleaned myself up. As I said, I really love this balance. Now, some people may want to make it more milk heavy. So you might put, instead of 80 grams of water, you might put 50 grams of water. You might put 40 grams of water. You can adapt. That's fine. I find that when you do that, you lose a little bit of the matcha taste. If the proportion is more milk to water, you lose a little bit of the brewed quality of the matcha, the actual tea taste of the matcha. But again, up to you to experiment. I'm just giving you our guidelines for what we've been working on and perfecting our matcha latte. 80 grams of water to 200 ml of milk, for me, is the right level, with 5 grams of matcha. Now, when I order a matcha latte, I actually usually order a matcha flat white because I actually prefer that, and that's 80 grams of water, so same base, and 120 grams or mil of milk. Use full fat milk, please. It makes a big difference, and use high quality milk. The milk is very, very important too. If you wanted to make an iced matcha latte, then all that you're doing is preparing the same matcha base but use cold water, and then pour milk over ice, and then just pour that matcha over the top. Right, tip number 6, you don't need to use matcha. Sometimes you want that luxurious milky matcha latte style drink, but you don't want the caffeine. You don't want that jolt, that pick-me-up that a matcha latte may give you. If so, there is an alternative which is delicious. It's right here. It looks exactly like matcha. It is mulberry leaf. It's also produced in Japan. Mulberry leaf lattes are a joy. They just are so delicious, and also great for kids as well, if you want to get them started on tea drinking. So we're going to make this matcha. I'll do a flat white instead, right? Just so we can show you the difference. So instead of 200 ml of milk, I'm going to be measuring out 120 ml. So there's 120 ml of milk. I'm gonna froth that up. And now I've got the same bowl. I've got 5 grams of mulberry here. And I'm gonna be doing the same thing, exactly the same recipe. I'm gonna be adding 80 ml of water. There you go. Take it off the scale. The smell of mulberry. It's like a vanilla pudding kind of smell to it. Yes, it's green. Yes, it's got like a little bit of a nutty, a little bit of a herbal, like maybe a bit of dill and a bit of parsley in there, but it's very vanilled, very puddingy, and the texture on it is thicker than matcha. As you can see here, it's very, very viscous. It won't froth up anywhere near the same amount, because the bubbles on it are just going to look bigger and thicker, because it is super thick, and it makes a really luxurious mouthfeel. All right, so let's do things differently. Let's pour it in here this time. So pour the matcha in. Oh, sorry, mulberry in this case. And then you pour your hot steamed milk on top, and there you have a very frothy, this machine sort of makes things very, very frothy. You've got a very, very frothy mulberry flat white. Look at that. Give this a taste. Cheers, everybody. I mean, why people haven't discovered the joys of mulberry leaf yet, I don't know. We were 20 years too early with the matcha, so maybe give it another 5-10 years and everyone's going to be drinking mulberry leaf. Because it's different to matcha. It's a different taste. It's still got savory, less of that rounded umami brothiness that a good matcha has, but it's still got a savory vegetal note that moves to, as I said, like this quite childish vanilla pudding note. My daughter loves mulberry lattes. All of her friends come over, they drink mulberry lattes all the time. That's their sophisticated, drink when they want to sort of imitate the matcha drinkers out there. But it is a delicious, delicious drink in its own right. So there you go. Your 6 pro tips to making the best matcha lattes. Number 1, get good quality matcha. Number 2, experiment with different varieties of matcha so that you can find your favorites and give yourself diversity and variety when you're making your drinks. Number 3, whisk the matcha or mulberry to order. Avoid any establishment that uses the squeezy bottle. Number 4, use warm but not boiling water when you're making your lattes. If you're making any iced drinks, just use cold water. Number 5, get your proportions right. I've shown you the whole technique. 5 grams of matcha, 80 grams of water, then 120 grams of milk if you're making a flat white, or 200 grams of milk if you're making a latte, and combine them like I showed you. Super simple. And tip number 6, you can make a matcha latte style drink that's not caffeinated by using mulberry. I hope that this video has given you some insight into the wonderful world of matcha lattes. We have so many videos about matcha. I'll stick them all in the description below so you can become the matcha master yourself. And of course, we've got lots of videos about all other kinds of tea and tea culture. So make sure that you dive in and discover the wonderful world of tea further. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the sublime stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.